Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Y'all are already out here, already making commentary when I actually haven't said anything. You must be new to my channel because if you think that I don't talk about how crap the Democrats are, you must be lost. Welcome in, everyone. Hi, Mickey. Hello. Hello. This is a simulcast, y'all. So some of y'all, like Catherine, are on Twitch, as you can see from the little Twitch logo. Whereas D, hey D, is on YouTube. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everybody. Now, I don't want to keep y'all here all night. Ash, what is up, friend? What is up, River? Hello, wake up, makeup slay. Hey, Muddy Mocha. Did you see we finished? We finished Huey Newton. Thank you, Mimi. You're very beautiful yourself. I can see from your Abby. Welcome in, y'all. So this is the first time those of you who are on YouTube are seeing me in a minute, but the Twitch fam, the patrons are probably sick of me. They're probably sick of me at this point because we spent an unreasonable amount of time together for February/ Black History Month. We were reading this book for our book club book, and I decided to take on a big undertaking, which was reading the entire book via live stream in bits. I didn't do it in one go, that would be crazy. But I did read the entire 360-page book with y'all on live streams on Patreon. So I did that for a few reasons. One, to get into a practice of reading aloud and doing group study with y'all in that fashion. And two, to make the book club book for the NatFam Book Club, which, by the way, is meeting tomorrow. Link to join was posted to my Patreon earlier today if you want to join us, to make it more accessible. Because I know for me, audiobooks don't work, but for some people, they work better. And this was sort of creating the experience of an interactive audiobook. That's what I was going for. So those of you who joined me for that, I appreciate you more than you know, because it was a lot of sips of water, stammering, working our way through, but we did. We read the entire Ting. And yeah, even though I was at one point simulcasting both to a private stream for my patrons on YouTube as well as to my Twitch, which link in the D box if you want to check me out on Twitch, you can do it right now. This is streaming to Twitch as we speak, and you get some extra special treats over there that I don't have here on YouTube. Um, the censorship on YouTube is insane. That is the main reason I've even taken up this endeavor to try to start growing my Twitch. I just need other options because I have deliberately not said the title of this book because this is being simulcast to YouTube, but I have never had to censor that on Twitch at all. It's been fine. YouTube is YouTube. Okay. You can imagine the second word is what caused the trouble, but like to me, that's ridiculous. It is literally the name of a very well known book. But they took my first video down where I was reading and casting it to YouTube as well, claiming that I was promoting self harm by reading from a book. Okay. So that is why, that is why. So yeah, that is more or less it. But as I said, this is being simulcast right now. You get, oops, wrong way. You get little emotes like this that I made. That is the Ray Ray, my dog. And I made some other ones specifically for the Twitch, because that was one of the things I was able to unlock there, which was really fun. Here's a little bit of B-roll of just what my Twitch page is doing right now. This is going to be a bit of a surreal experience for those of y'all who are on Twitch, because you're looking at Twitch on a Twitch page right now. But yeah, I'm busy over there. We are active. And then you get more funny, cute emotes like such as as well as help, God, if you're listening. And then, of course, more ones of the Ray Ray, some of which are animated. This is my favorite one. This is the squabble up. The squabble up Ray Ray emote is probably my favorite thing ever. But okay, Money Mocha, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself because whenever I need a laugh, I just think of that face. I just think of Viola Davis making that face. Viola was dead wrong for that, and I was dead wrong for turning that into an emote. If you want to see what we're talking about, y'all got to go over to Twitch. But anyway, let's get into it because it's been about 5 minutes. I wanted to vamp a little while folks trickled in. But every day, there are like 3 or 4 or 5 new fires with Felon, with Doge, all of it. And we talked about this, meaning me and patrons, talked about this recently where I did a live and I was just like, you guys, the chaos is the strategy. I think that's even what I called the live. The chaos is the strategy because they want us to feel overwhelmed. They want us to feel helpless because if people feel helpless, then they do not resist. Um, but I will say, I did see yesterday, Doge low key got doxxed by the New York Times. New York Times published the names and faces of pretty much everyone they could figure out who was like on Doge. I hate the New York Times. I hate all corporate media for obvious reasons. If you're not new to this channel, if you are new to this channel, maybe we ain't got the time to get into it, but welcome. But anyone who knows me even a little bit knows that I will hate all corporate media. But this time around, I was just like, get him, Brenda. I saw that the Times had posted, they low key doxed all of Doge. Get him. Anyway, felon in them have likely been a little bit more quiet today for that reason. But in general, I feel like the leopards are probably very, very, very full. They've eaten a lot of faces at this point. The leopards been just eating faces left and right every day. There are no shortage of stories on Reddit and just in headlines of dumbass drumfers who are now reaping what they sowed. Nini, it should be called douche. Mind if I use that? Just like I call him felon, I'm now calling it douche. It was right there the whole time. How did I miss it? I appreciate you. Douche it is. The maggots are reaping what they sowed. Those people voted for Trump because they wanted other people to suffer, people who look like me. They wanted other people to suffer, and they were kikiing about Black people and about illegals losing their jobs and getting deported because they're too stupid to realize that they were never going to be spared in any of this. Their shit backfired, and now they're getting all of their safety nets and their jobs yanked right out from under them. Leopards ate my face. It was DEI this, affirmative action that, and now those people are finding out that their whiteness doesn't protect them from their own mediocrity. Oops. Oops. They voted for the tangerine tyrant, and shout out to Gerald Horn. I did not come up with that. Dr. Gerald Horn came up with that as far as I know. They voted for the tangerine tyrant simply because they thought it would facilitate Black people getting sent back to slavery. And now they're finding out they write on the plantation with us. They write on the plantation. And it serves them right. Because if you are a person out here sitting up thinking that economic and racial equity are a bad thing, I got news for you. You're the villain. If you think economic and racial equity are a problem, you're the bad guy. When these racists do what they do to try to destroy the lazy and unqualified Black people from having anything, from having literally anything, as if we haven't had centuries of systems built to already stop us from having anything. But when they do what they do to try to make it even worse, they destroy themselves in the process, right along with us. So, unfortunately, in that process, they do harm us too. So, one example of us also being harmed is what's happening now. And sorry, y'all, I'm not sorry about this. This is the Trojan horse, I guess, because I got to get people in here to actually check out the content, but I always like to sneak in something that is of greater importance, and that is Sudan, because I'm sure most of y'all heard about all the cuts to USAID, which happened in week one. That was like one of the first things they did. Now, USAID is not without its problems. In many cases, it is a Trojan horse for CIA meddling in other countries, and in very many cases, a band aid on a stab wound. But that isn't to say that we don't need them band aids. The famine in Sudan is terrible. Um, and it's also being underreported as the entire war has been, because Sudan has one of the greatest displacements in human history happening right now. And this famine is killing children. Okay. But it's also being underreported because it's mostly Black people. So that ties back to why I have issues with mainstream media. They don't care. That's why they don't talk about this stuff. So I have linked um, Sarah. She's a journalist. She's Sudanese. I've linked her Instagram, and she's been reporting on Sudan and explaining it all for people who might not understand what exactly the situation is and what's happening and why. She's been reporting on it the whole time. There was even a moment last year where her uncle had been displaced and was missing, and she found him and was able to like let everyone know that she found her uncle and that he was safe. But it was still just a very heart-wrenching situation. But anyway, I've linked her Instagram and her link tree, which is on her Instagram, in the D box, so that you can find out how to help if you want to help contribute. Because, with USAID yanking the food and whatnot and medicine that they were helping to provide to people who are already living on a razor's edge, it's just messed up. So, anyway, thank you all for joining me. I wanted to get that. Yes, we are in such a mess. I wanted to get that out of the way before we get into these messy hoes squaring up in the Oval Office this morning. When this war started 3 years ago, I sat at this very desk on a live stream, if I'm not mistaken, and was talking about how this whole war is some white on white crime. This war and the state of the white supremacist imperialist world that we live in, full stop, all of this it's perpetrated by violent thugs who often lack intelligence, as we saw this morning. So I'm not boo-hooing for Zelensky. I'm not boo-hooing for Putin or Trump or Macron or any of them. All right. I just want to say that at the top. I think a lot of you will have heard about, if not seen, the chaos, the circus, the embarrassment that ensued this morning. But just for some context, because y'all know I love context, let's talk a little bit about why Zelensky was there. So at some point, Trump made up a number saying that the US had spent something like $500 billion in weapons and aid helping Ukraine not lose this war to Russia. Now, while there have been billions of dollars spent, 500 billion is a Trumpism. That's completely exaggerated and made up. Any billions, in my opinion, are inappropriate, but 500 is still more than what it actually is realistically. Somehow that number is estimated to be more close to 150 billion, still billion with a B. Uh-huh. Feels like a good time to mention that Flint doesn't have clean water still. Flint still does not have clean water. Here in the United States, Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water. Anyway, about $150 billion in Ukraine weapons under Biden. But Trump is Putin's fluffer, right? the other side. Trump is bottoming for Putin. So he's walking back that whole relationship of the US as an ally to the Ukraine. And he went as far as calling Zelensky a dictator a few days ago. From what I understand, Zelensky is only still in office because they're at war, like they're actively at war and getting bombed and whatnot. And I believe it was just decided that it's too chaotic to have an election at the natural end of his term, which is now behind us. Supposedly, Zelensky is also wildly unpopular amongst Ukrainians, but I'm not sure how true that is because, again, that's white on white crime. I mostly stay out of it. But at the same time, if the mainstream media is saying that he's wildly unpopular, we have to take that with several grains of salt because what the mainstream media says about Maduro in Venezuela also ain't true. So who knows? Who knows? It really depends on what oligarch they are answering to at any given time. That defines and dictates how they report things to us. Very good point, Bitter Almonds. Jackson, Mississippi also had a potable water issue. That's right. Welcome to the Twitch fam. Yes, we love to see it. Ash, you and I are always on the same page. I love that the war criminal was here to beg for money from war criminals and decided to fight in public. And I oop. So yeah, that's basically what this was. Putin is Trump's boss. But Trump was trying to broker this deal where the US would be able to raid natural minerals that are in the Ukraine, which the logistics of that, I don't know how and when and how long that would happen when the country is still actively at war. But I guess the idea is he would be able to just put an end to the war so that they could raid the minerals like freaking Mario in a basement gathering coins, right? They have lithium, I think zinc and some other natural stuff. Like it's always about just extraction resources, even when those resources are human beings. That's how these people move, right? So the idea was that this was how Ukraine was going to pay back the weapons they've already received that they are in debt to the United States for, as well as continued support so that this whole proxy war can continue. Um, Now, I happened to catch this whole thing live. I was doing stuff here at home, just working and doing things around the house. And I just happened to have France 24 on in the background as noise. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of hearing bits and pieces. Zelensky arrives, and I remember I kind of glanced at the TV and I clocked that Zelensky's jaw, like when he got out of the Suburban, was looking kind of clenched from the jump. Because after all, Trump did already call this guy a dictator a few days ago, right? So that's already kind of undermining him and doing typical Trump things in the press and whatnot. So Zelensky's jaw was looking a little tight the second he stepped out of that vehicle. And then they go inside and the reporters are explaining what's happening and the yada, yada, yada. And then 10, 15 minutes go by, maybe more. And I start hearing yelling. And the voice yelling is Trump. And a voice I later learned was JD Vance because I didn't know what that man sounded like until on today. And slowly I turned. I said, not these hoes tussling in the Oval. What is, Catherine? Oh, Trump tried to pretend it was going to be chummy because typically Trump don't want the smoke in real life. He's a Twitter tough guy until he got banned from that, although he's obviously been reinstated. But he's still on his ghetto version of that same app, right? He's um he's a thumb warrior, but he usually don't have the smoke for people in real life. I was actually kind of surprised, but I think it had a lot to do with Vance. Vance was in there like the Smash Brothers tag teaming, you know, because I feel like Vance and Trump thought that this whole charade, this whole circus was a show of power and strength and US domination and all that. But instead of that, For me, for me, it was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing for all parties involved, you know? Like it was giving WWE, you know? I feel like Drumpf and Vance were just kind of living out their best Tony Soprano fantasy. They were trying to act like they're all mobbed up. That was the vibe. It's just like, how dare you approach me like this the day of my daughter's wedding, and not be thankful. You should be very thankful. Indeed. And yes, the KLR, welcome to Twitch. Clown show. The clown show was on today. By the way, does anybody know? And I know that I've done it a few times in this live as well. Um, Partially because I think the delay makes me feel like I need to reiterate things. But why does Trump say everything three times like he's Umar? It makes me homicidal. He says everything over and over and over and over and over again because it's like he can't even figure out a way to say it differently. He will say it verbatim three times, four times, five times. You don't have the cards. You should be thankful. You're gambling with World War III. You're being disrespectful. And by the way, Drumpf calling anyone else disrespectful is the gag of the century. I mean, you are the pot and the kettle, sir, when it comes to being disrespectful. But okay. And then at the end, when Trump goes, you know what, this is going to be great television. I, I really, it was giving David after the dentist for me. I was just like, is this real life? Is this can't, what is happening? Zelensky being ESL, I feel like he also was at an additional disadvantage, even just from that, because Drumpf will steamroll you. And then when he has backup with Vance, they were just talking over him. Every time he was trying to say anything, just steamrolled. Um, and then when you're here basically to beg for money so that you can keep running your war or your defense, I guess, in this war. Why is he always dressed like a personal trainer, by the way? Zelensky, put on a fucking tie. Anyway, he's here hat in hand, so you can tell that he wanted to backhand them both so bad, but he couldn't. He couldn't. He needs the money. So he couldn't lose his composure and he couldn't be as disrespectful to Trump and Vance as they were being to him. It was really kind of surreal. Um, I thought it was interesting too how he made reference, Zelensky did, to the US, you guys are protected by an ocean. He said something to that effect, but it was hard to hear because again, he was being steamrolled. And then Trump jumped on that. It was just like, don't tell us how we're gonna have what we're going to have to worry about, or something to that effect. Like Trump really did not like that, but that's true. The ocean on both sides of the United States, both coasts, is somewhat of a barrier, not from nukes. I mean, these people are playing with our lives for real, for real. I gotta say. But that barrier is not something to be ignored. It's a little bit different when it's your neighbor just walking on over and opening fire. Ooh, whatever happened to diplomacy? Ghetto. I was honestly really taken aback. Y'all know that I do not like Barack Obama. Okay. He's a war criminal too. But can you imagine if he had behaved like that in the Oval Office during a telecast, a live telecast, meeting with other heads of state? Can you imagine? I cannot. I legitimately cannot. Matter of fact, Key and Peele made a whole sketch out of the idea of how white knucklingly composed Obama always had to be when he had the anger translator. Remember that? But that's diplomacy. That's the gig. You asked for this. Hey, Victor, ghetto. Just just a little sprinkle of decorum. Maria, it is a rich, powerful ghetto. I don't know why that's tickling me as much as it is, but it's a rich, powerful ghetto. I didn't even know it was happening, Domino. I had no plans to tune in to watch this live because I got no skin in that game except for making sure that hopefully I don't get bombed. I would love to not have to worry about a war on our shores. Would love that, especially living in a coastal state. But nonetheless, my TV was on, and next thing I know, I was watching The Real Housewives of the Oval Office. Are they going to start throwing chairs like it's old school Jerry Springer? WWE guest star Trump having diplomacy. LOL, at least Zelensky was an actor. Oh, he was acting his behind off today. Ooh, what I would have given to be a fly on the wall in that Suburban after they were driving off of that white ass house lawn. I feel like Zelensky was probably just in that SUV, like, mother, in Ukrainian. In Ukrainian. Ooh, wee. Welcome in, Bruce Lee. New subscriber. Welcome to the family. Um, yeah. So Drumpf, he was on his great value built ass Twitter platform before Zelensky even left the White House, by the way. He was not tweeting, but socialing, truth socialing, like the messy bottom he is, because he couldn't even wait. He couldn't contain himself. He loves the drama. And he was already posting while Zelensky was still in the house. Just what a time to be alive. And I say that ruefully. Um, But yeah, long story made less long. Zelensky did wind up leaving. He did not sign the minerals deal. There was no working lunch. There was no press conference. After that dust up, and after Trump was just like, oh, this is going to make great television. And then he started fake tweeting, great value tweeting. Zelensky was just like, I gotta go punch a wall. He was out. He was out. Yeah. And it was kind of interesting that he was kind of making this implication with the ocean comments, but I'm like, but you can't bring that smoke to the US. You're losing a war against a much bigger country as it is, you know? So that isn't to say that the US doesn't have enemies and that they're not making new ones every day. But the US is not the superpower that it used to be. And that is becoming more and more clear and more I can't think of the right word, but yeah, the US is not the free world, number one anymore. It's there is no free world, honestly. It's a fascist world. But hey, friend, the art of the no deal. Yeah, Victor, I had a similar experience. I think you're talking about the one from a few weeks ago when he was talking about, we're gonna turn this into a Riviera. That made me have a visceral physical reaction. The amount of despair and dread I felt, I had to just turn it off. And that was another time where I just had the news going so I could kind of get the quick 30-minute catch up of what had happened, and I had to turn it off when it got to that part. Um, it was extremely stressful, and I don't know, Cho. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. After that, it's just been people reacting to this and trying to figure out what the hell Zelensky's gonna do because he's been humiliated on a on an international platform. But to be honest with you, like I feel humiliated that that is the leader of the country that I that I live in and that I am a citizen of. It's all very embarrassing. And this is putting our safety as citizens at risk because we ain't got nothing to do with this. So Trump being out here popping off and acting crazy and making enemies, That ain't good for us, you know? That ain't good for us. Right. I remember that, Maria, when he was asked about, where should they go? Mm-mm-mm. And Nini, going back to one of the many issues with mainstream media, the numbers that they're reporting are a fraction of the reality. We're well over 100,000, and with the population being more than half kids, do the math. So yeah. Anyways, um, I think we can move on from that. It's already been 30 minutes, and I had planned to stay on for about only 30 minutes total. So let's move on to this boycott situation, y'all, because I think it's let me see. I actually had a couple things I wanted to show y'all first. One was just this. I came across this recently. Does that slogan look familiar to you? Before we actually move on, although it is actually kind of a good segue, it's a good transition. Does that remind you that does that language sound America first? I feel like a certain sect of people is saying that right now. Huh. But these are the writers. These are the ones who wrote that. So just know who we are dealing with, both domestically and internationally. This is the mindset as well. Came across this the other day on the internet. Speaking of dictators, speaking of pot meat kettle, hmm. So the boycotts. Now, in my last YouTube video, because I know a lot of you are tuning in from YouTube right now, that was basically, that was basically right. That was basically right on the heels of the executive orders basically making illegal something that was never a law, which is DEI, or at least saying that DEI is over, we're not tolerating it, it's discrimination, all of this, right? And we also talked a little bit about how Black business owners like Tabitha Brown and Melissa Butler, who are in these stores that have now rolled back their DEI policies, had spoken to that. And in that video, and as now, I was not prescriptive about, what I think everyone should do because that's not my place. I know what I do. I did do a whole Patreon video on this last week or a few days ago at least, where I was more transparent about how I'm moving and whatnot. But I ain't trying to do that here because uh, I do not find shame to be effective as a means of motivating people or coercing them or trying to even build solidarity. And therefore, I'm not really, but if you know my politics, you probably understand how I'm moving through all of this, right? Anyway, somehow the we're going to boycott these corporations, or we're at least going to boycott buying anything from them unless we're supporting the Black owned businesses they carry, which to me is kind of like, whatever you think is best, babes. But somehow that turned into, okay, we're going to boycott for one day. And that day is today. Now, the we is TBD. I've just seen these things on social media. And as I say often, I don't know what, I don't want to be out here telling people what to do. I just talk about what I do. And in this case, I'm not even doing that unless you're on my Patreon. Okay. So then the indefinite, we're boycotting these brands until they start acting right, turned into we're going to boycott for one day. And that day is today. Now, I'm putting this up here because I want to acknowledge my own contradictions as well. I am an extremely flawed person. I like to hold myself accountable to the best of my ability. And I'm putting this up because you can see the CEOs of the two platforms to which I'm streaming right now in these photos from the inauguration. These are the people that Trump actually works for. You got Musk, you got the Google guy, I forget his name. but that's YouTube. In the middle there, you got Bozos. That's Amazon, which is also Twitch because Amazon purchased Twitch. And you got Gerberg. Have to self-censor because I am simulcasting to YouTube. Wouldn't have to do that on Twitch though. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I know, I know, because I'm streaming to platforms that are supposed to be part of this boycott on today. Okay, I'm acknowledging my contradictions. But then this is one of the flyers I saw going around. Don't buy stuff Friday, February 28th. We have power. No Amazon, Walmart, Target, fast food, gas, okay, small business, use cash. Do not buy a thing. This is from Until Freedom, which is Tamika Mallory's organization. Uh, one day, I will never say don't bother. Like, even one day is one more day than zero. But I think we need to be clear about the necessary discipline and time for a boycott to actually be effective. It became very popular to start referring to the Montgomery bus boycott when all this DEI stuff started. But one thing that needs to be remembered about that boycott was that it lasted over a year. It required tremendous organization, including a lot of the organizers who were mostly women. No shade to MLK, but it was mostly women who lived and worked in Montgomery, often in domestic positions, organizing carpools with people who had cars, walking to and from work, even if it were many miles to do so, which means leaving earlier, bunions, all that. It included doing all sorts of sandwich and bake sales at laundromats, and sometimes selling food right back to the same people who were responsible for the policies that were oppressing you, meaning the white people in town. So selling food and baked goods at churches, laundromats, all that kind of stuff, often to the same white people who weren't letting you ride the bus at the front, right? Very clever stuff. As I said in that YouTube video, I don't think that we can compare a 1 day boycott with that. We just cannot. That isn't to say that, yeah, like we should boycott for 1 day, but I think we ought to think about maybe more long-term strategies and solidarity. And again, I don't like to engage in shaming because when you are working in liberation spaces, I think it's very easy to not even realize how much that we fall susceptible to divide and conquer. um, Particularly on the left with so-called progressives, if someone isn't progressive enough for you, if someone isn't left enough for you, people just be factioning like crazy. And it's like, this is how we lose, y'all. This is how we lose. Even when I posted my video to my Patreon first, because I always post everything early for them, I had someone in the comments very upset with me because I was just like, I understand where Tabitha Brown is coming from. That doesn't mean that I'm going to do what she's suggesting. But I understand where she's coming from because I don't really think that we're going to win if I call everyone out of their name who has a different take on things. Like, it's one thing if your take is I'm voting for Trump, like that's lines have to be drawn at some point, you know? Harriet carried a pistol for a reason, as I say a lot. But I think we need to have more discernment of where we can actually have coalition. If we ultimately do want the same things and maybe we have varying approaches, we need to not burn every bridge before we even build it. So here's another one. This one's from a clothing brand actually called Change. This is your reminder to join the economic blackout. This is posted yesterday. And this one really sent me because they legit put 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. Like we're just going to be out here white knuckling it on Amazon.com. Like, come on, midnight, March 1st. I need to buy some more bullshit I don't need. Come on. Like, you guys, I think that we're capable of more than maybe we think we are. That's all. What is the economic blackout? February 28th, economic blackout encourages consumers to avoid spending any money with major retailers this Friday as an act of economic protest in response to the malign influence of billionaires and big corporations and both major political parties on the lives of working Americans. Avoid shopping from any major retailers, yada, 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 the same ones we saw on the other flyer. Who's behind it, which I thought was interesting. Apparently, it is organized by the People's Union USA. Okay. I don't really necessarily think things like this need to be organized by anyone but the people. Like the idea is to not do something. So that's fine. There was a similar event like this, I want to say 2020-ish. It was a don't buy nothing type of boycott, just an economic shutdown, which I supported, I participated in, while also remaining realistic about how minimal the scope and impact of things like that are. But you don't have to ask me twice to not buy shit for one day. I can handle that, and I can handle more than that. And I will do more than that. But okay, yeah, let's do it. And I remember I was promoting that particular economic blackout at that time. And someone was just like, well, such and such org is behind this and they're shady for these reasons and yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, I think it's strange that you went out of your way to DM me to discourage me from participating in a boycott where like it really doesn't matter who's organizing it. They don't profit from us not buying anything. And I didn't even know who these people were. Is it even true that this group that you think has questionable origins is even behind this idea? Ultimately, it doesn't matter who's behind it. Just don't buy some shit. Just don't buy some shit. It's really that simple. I don't think we need to overcomplicate things sometimes. Will 24 hours really make an impact? It's a start. We often fail to recognize the power we collectively we carry with our spending behavior. That I agree with. Together, we can influence more sustainable change by working to boycott harmful corporations long term. Now, this I like. I wish this wasn't the fourth slide in the carousel. I wish it were like on the first slide, because this is really why I actually thought this post was a little bit more effective. It wasn't the beginning and the end. It was just like, if you feel like it's hard for you because maybe you live somewhere remote and you rely on these places because of the prices that they've been able to offer by becoming monopolies and making it impossible for smaller businesses to compete. That's why these stores are as cheap as they are. That's why they're everywhere. That's why they're ubiquitous. But anyway, um, if you think that you need more of a transitional period to learning what your other options are and finding your solves for getting things from other places, I think that that's fair. As long as we are in agreement that that is the goal, is to ultimately walk away and for more than one day. While many day to day purchases are often necessities, we encourage you to do your best each day to only support companies who share your values. That's right. Companies who are working to prioritize people on the planet over the maximization of profit. Because even as we covered in the YouTube video and however many other times I've talked with you guys on live, I I understand that DEI has always been performative, but I demand the performance. I demand it. Because there's too many other tangible obstacles that y'all can at least do a little shuck and jive for us. I demand it. So if you're going to be out here saying it with your chest, so am I. You're not getting my coins. Not today. Not today. Okay, y'all. I think I'm going to call it here because I was trying to do 30 minutes. I was trying to keep it cute and short in case people wanted to catch the replay, they wouldn't be overwhelmed by a crazy ass TRT. That's total runtime. But ooh, an employee died on the floor at a Target a few years ago. They closed long enough to move the body. It matters. I didn't even hear about this, but a similar thing. Oh, I can't even say it's similar. but I've talked about this before in videos and whatnot, about the Amazon employee who they had testing and doing all sorts of COVID safety officer stuff without the proper training or PPE. She went home, she died in her sleep, and they buried it. They buried the whole story. But I revisited it, I think in that video I just made a couple days ago when I was talking to my patrons. So yeah, yeah, Minty, you're gonna have to hit the replay and rewind. But thanks for joining anyway. But that's it, y'all. I'm gonna wrap it up. Yep, Ash knows, because I think I've heard of warehouse stories as well. And even because Amazon now owns Whole Foods, of people who are the pickers who pick things from the shelf and bag pickup orders because apparently a lot of people are still unwilling to get out of their cars to come get their groceries. That's another thing. But the people who pack up groceries for people who are doing store pickup, they're living under insane quotas to have to meet, where now they're supposed to be picking, I think, more than one item per minute, even to fulfill orders. So it used to be something like maybe you have to pick 40 items in an hour, then it went to 60, and I think it's now around 90. And people are so burnt out and exhausted that people have collapsed on the job. And rather than letting them go home, they're like, take your break, see if you feel better so that you can complete your shift. Like that has been the culture at Whole Foods because it is now an Amazon company. So don't get me started. Don't get me started. I love y'all down. That's where I'm going to leave it. Make sure that y'all stay safe, stay dangerous, and never trust any of these war criminal, violent thugs. Bye bye.